Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5, and 8-5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my thing used, and 8-5, this is 7 November, Charlie. 8-5 right now. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, reference to your last, you're granted 158 extra 5 stars, 1200 between teams, and local. Also request your unit take outbound records to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for pause at the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that.
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf. My unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Yeah, I never took a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. This is Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. This is Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5, and 8-5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go.
Good morning. If you're new to this channel, I usually cover veteran benefits and veteran-related news. And then every once in a while, when I have some time, I'll do a quick Bible study. All right. Not monetized, not anything. If YouTube does play an ad, it's because YouTube wants to. And today we're going through John 13, 1 through 20. Let me see if I can get this. Okay, that's better. Now I did 13, 1 through 20. My previous stream, I did this and talked about serving others, and which is the general message. But there's a little bit more in there I wanted to highlight. All right, so what we're going to do is just read the text. I'm on blueletterbible.org. There's all kinds of tools here. I also use Logos, but that's you have to pay for Logos. So to each their own. Yeah, I think it stops at verse 9. It does stop at 9. Okay, so today will be a little shorter. Now, before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come and that he would depart from this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the very end. I can tell you right now that this right here is one of my favorite verses. One of my favorite verses. That we can say I love Taco Bell, or I love Chick-fil-A, or I love my wife. It's not the same type of sacrificial, unconditional love that Jesus had for his disciples and all of us. So, hence the sweater. Jesus loves you and I'm trying. Anyways. One of my favorite verses here. And I'm not going to like do a super exegetical type deal, but the Feast of the Passover, one of the themes in John is that these parties keep happening and Jesus keeps showing up to his own party, right? So there's a lot more to take from that, but that's the main theme in John. And as well as his hour when you look at time. Anyways, and during supper, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray him. These two verses are key here. Jesus knowing that the Father had handed all things over to him and that he had come forth from God and was going back to God, got up from supper and laid his outer garments aside, and he took a towel and tied it around himself. So real quick, these two verses, we kind of see a very hard line being drawn. You have evil, and then you have good. Another main theme here. And the last stream I did is that Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him, and he washed his feet. It was about forgiveness and anger and serving and setting the example, and all of that is absolutely true of this passage, but there's something else I want to point out. Got up from supper and laid his outer garments aside, and he took a towel and tied it around himself. This part's going to be key here this morning. Oh, I also got coffee. Pumpkin spice. That in all humility, right, this creator of the universe, this all-knowing, all-loving, agape type of love, absolutely. That's the Greek word here for sacrificial, unconditional, okay? In Hebrew, you'll see ahava, I believe. But this creator of the universe, all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, humiliates himself, right? Takes off his outer garments, and he took a towel and tied it around himself. Anytime I see a preacher talk about this, I always imagine them, because you know how sometimes they're big into props, like them tying a towel around themselves, which would be super awkward and very inappropriate in the 21st century. But that's what it is. It's humiliating. It's servants do this, slaves do this, the lowly do this, and Jesus is preparing to wash the disciples' feet. The reason this matters is his interaction with Peter, and that's what we're going to focus on this morning, is the interaction with Peter specifically. All right. Then he poured water into the basin and began washing the disciples' feet and wiping them with a towel which he had tied around himself. All right. Humiliating. He's humiliating himself. He's becoming a servant. So he came. Sometimes I read comments and and it kind of stops me in my tracks. So I got to get back to humble humiliation, right? Humility. Live in humility. So he came to Simon Peter and said to him, "Lord, are you washing my feet?" Now, this is the tone that I'm using because it's early. My kids didn't sleep that much. But it's really Peter being like, "My guy, why are you washing my feet? Are you serious? Like, you are the creator of the universe. You're the son of the living God. How is it that you are washing my feet? I'm not worthy. I don't understand it. Please stop. This act is below you." That's the mindset that Peter has, okay? He has this image of perfection, of what the Messiah is supposed to be, okay? And more than likely, the general consensus, not just of Peter or the other disciples, but the entire Jewish community is like, yes, the Messiah is here. Those who believe, he's going to take up sword, overthrow the Roman government, and conquer the world, right? His kingdom come. Literal kingdom, literal king here on earth. That is their mindset. And so whenever Jesus which, by the way, this is Passover. Everyone knows the prophecies, the Old Testament prophets. Okay, so anytime there's a Passover and Jesus is there, it's intense. Everyone knows what's supposed to go down within their mind, and Peter has this image of perfection that he transfers to the Christ and saying, how in the world is it that the Christ is washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, what am I doing you do not realize right now, but you will understand later. And Peter said to him, never shall you wash my feet, right? Again, it's a little early. My kids didn't sleep that well. But Peter's like, no way, Jose. Paraphrased. You know, if I wrote the message, I would put no way, Jose there. Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no place with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, then wash not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. And when you look at the next 10 verses in this passage, it's about serving and Jesus setting the example, and all of that is spot on. Okay. That's what we talked about last time we did this. What I want to focus on is Peter's interaction and really our view of perfection. You know, we strive for perfection in our own lives. I can tell you that I strive for perfection in my relationship with Christ. I try to read my Bible and pray every day, and when I don't, I really beat myself over it to a really depressed, anxious state. I strive for perfection when it comes to being a husband and a father, and whenever I fail at those, it really, really sucks. It weighs pretty heavy. And then probably my third on this list is whenever I strive for perfection in the youth group that I'm a part of, that I help lead, okay? And anytime those go wrong, I really, really beat myself up over it. And fear's involved in that. Depression, anxiety, okay? All those are wrapped around what we view as perfect. And Peter has a perfect view of the Son of the living God and within his framework, within his culture, all right? That the Messiah is supposed to do all these great things. And instead of doing all these great things, Jesus washes his feet, all right? And then, long story short, Peter's like, oh, then wash everything. Now, the reason this matters is because I'm going to fast forward in the story here. Jesus washes the disciples' feet. He has this encounter with Peter, kind of similar to Peter confessing that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. And then in the next, I think, 2 verses, Jesus says, get away from me, Satan. And he calls Peter that. Right after changing his name to Peter, he calls him Satan. And we see a very similar stance here, okay? Where Peter says one thing, Jesus answers him, and Peter's like, oh, I changed my mind. And fast forwarding into the story, I'm really going fast here. They had the Last Supper. They have the body and blood of Christ, Eucharist or communion, whichever your tradition follows there. I am a communion type person. And that's when Jesus says, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. Right? So Jesus washes his feet. Peter can't believe it. He has the body and blood of Christ. He denies Jesus 3 times. Jesus dies on the cross. He's resurrected. And it just shows how someone who's so powerful as Peter, we like to see Peter as like this almost sinless superhero in the Bible, you know? When in reality, I think Peter was a normal dude. He's a normal dude just like us. And he had this encounter with Christ, and he didn't always get it right. He did get it right. Jesus, you're the Son of the living God. You're the Christ. He did get it right. He also got it wrong. He also sinned. After Jesus washed his feet, after he took communion or the Eucharist, whichever you prefer. And then he denied the Christ. Okay, so Jesus dies, he's resurrected, he goes back to Peter, and Peter's like, dang it, I was wrong again. This dude's the Christ. Stupid me. Paraphrase. All right. And then you go all the way, I think it's in Galatians. Galatians 2, I believe. And I'll end it right here. When does Paul confront? Oh, here we go. It is Peter. Okay. So Peter opposed by Paul. Long story short here, again, fast forwarding. So after all that, you would think Peter's got his stuff right, okay? His view of perfection has been shattered in the Christ, and he's sinned multiple times after confessing that Jesus is the Son of the living God, after taking communion, Eucharist, after seeing the resurrected Christ. Fast forward there, Peter has this vision, and Jesus is basically saying, hey, everything that was unclean, that's the old law. It's cool now. It's clean. Also, you can hang out with Gentiles. You can eat with them. Peter's like, got it, cool. And he does that. He does just that. And so now we fast forwarded, and we're back into this spot here. But when Cephas, I'm just going to say Peter, just to keep it simple. When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, this is Paul, because he stood condemned. For prior to the coming from some men from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. I assume that means James the Just here. He used to eat with the Gentiles, but when they came, he began to withdraw and separate himself, fearing those from circumcision, right? So Peter has his vision. He obeys God. He does eat with the uncircumcised, okay? Again, the old law. And then now that some of his homies are there with him, paraphrase, obviously, right? Some of these men from James, people who would have been the same background as Peter, Peter has this he kind of falls back into his old ways, so to speak, right? He began to withdraw and separate himself, fearing those from circumcision. So long story short, Peter disobeyed God again, and you can go into Galatians here, but that's the point I want to make, is just as Peter had a perfected view of the Christ, and when Jesus came and died, it was definitely not what Peter thought, nor anyone else. That's an understatement. And then when he was resurrected, when Jesus was resurrected, right, you kind of assume that Peter got it. It clicked for him. Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? And Peter gets annoyed. He's like, Jesus, you know I love you. Why are you asking me this? Then he has the vision, and Peter obeys him, and then his homies come, and Peter disobeys him, sinning again. And the whole point I want to make here, something that I think gets missed in John 13, 1 through 20, really 1 through 9, is that we have this view of perfection, not just of Jesus, but of ourselves. That every time we fall short and we sin in our lives, I don't know about you guys, but I beat myself up over it. I lose sleep. I get really depressed. I get anxious, and it kind of just makes things worse. And if Peter, all right, if Peter can, after having all of his encounters with Christ, right? Peter walked on water with Jesus. That's big. Peter saw Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. Peter's feet was washed by Jesus. He was touched by the Son of God. Peter had communion, or the Eucharist, with Jesus. Peter saw the resurrected Christ. And if he can sin, what does that say about perfection in our lives? That if Peter can't do it, how are we to live up to that? And the answer is you can't. And I'll end with a quote. I forgot who it's by. I'm going to Google it. The quote is, the only thing you contribute to your salvation is your sin. That without sin, we don't actually need Jesus. The only thing you contribute to your salvation. Who said that? Okay. Is your sin. Google says it's Jonathan Edwards. I thought it was someone else, like a living older white guy, but maybe he took it from this guy. You contribute nothing to your salvation except the sin that made it necessary. Let me zoom in on that because that is far. Anyways, I don't know about you guys, but I strive for perfection in my life. On the channel, as a husband, as a father, as a person, as a friend, I strive for perfection, and I fail all the time. So maybe being perfect isn't what we're called to do. Anyways, that's all I got. All right, peace. Have a good morning. I'm going to be making some videos today. Very complete opposite of this stream. That's all I got. Peace.